We're going to call the regular meeting to order, and the first item on the agenda, if you're able to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silent prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Remain standing for a moment of silent prayer. Thank you. Before we dive right into the presentation of the buyer relief in Ypsilanti Township during number 1, Karen Wallen, HR Director, would like to introduce our new employee to the HR department. You're too little, Karen.
Tall enough for it. Good evening, Board. I wanted to take the opportunity, because I am very thrilled, to introduce my new coworker in the HR department, the new HR specialist, Erica Holmes, and I am thrilled to have her. I have her very busy already, and she's just been a great source of help and information already, just in the few weeks she's been here. So wanted to take an opportunity to publicly introduce her to the board tonight.
Erica, would you like to introduce yourself and just tell us a little about where you came from, and you're a township resident?
So my name's Erica Holmes. I've been a township resident for about 10, 11 years. I come to Charter Township of Ypsilanti by way of Eastern Michigan University and most recently Michigan State University. So
Welcome.
I have I've been in HR since about 2014.
Well, welcome.
Okay.
Thank you, Karen,
Thank
for
you.
bringing Erica. The next item on the agenda is just a brief presentation by Evan Pratt, who's our great water resource commissioner for Washtenaw County, and to update us on a few of the things going on in Ypsilanti Township with flooding and some of the things we're doing to address them.
Yes, thanks for the opportunity to give the board an update. Seemed like a good idea since we had another item on the agenda. So at your first meeting in December, can't remember if you have two in December or not, but beginning December, you authorized our office, you sent us petitions to begin study work on some of the areas that were hit worst with the flooding in August of 2023. We went through the process of hiring OHM, since they've done a lot of work in the township and have some familiarity with some aspects of those areas that had the worst flooding, and they have been out in the field the last month and a half or so. They've been doing survey work because they're going to create a computer model that we will calibrate through public process. During that survey work, they have found, as your supervisor has suggested many times, a number of drainage structures in that area that are totally full of dirt, and we are going to work with them to clean those out. It's pretty typical for this type of thing to go through and clean structures and televise them, but we can't run TV cameras there through there until we clean those structures out. So that's going to be commencing pretty soon here within the next month or so. So that's going to provide people relief right away. Certainly not in the biggest storms, not in the 500-year storm or what have you, but in the regular rain events, we hope that's going to help in some of those areas. But there are several drainage structures that are pretty well just full to the brim with dirt, so no surprise that you had trouble with street drainage there. The third thing that's in progress early on is there's been outreach to the township to have scheduled together for what the public process will look like, but that I would expect to start in the next month and a half or two. The idea right now, though, is to have an initial meeting with to invite, any elected officials at the various layers of government who might get a call from someone to coordinate with the township and any neighborhood watch groups. I don't know exactly where all the neighborhoods fit, and just to have a discussion about this is what the process is going to look like. This is what the engineers are doing. this is what we're telling people if they're calling our office, and let us know, if there's any issues, problems, or concerns. That way, the folks who would be getting calls from people who might be frustrated or, there's an event that happens, at least you know what's going on, and we've got information, and we want to make sure the community leaders are aware of what's going on. And we have a great group of people helping us with public process called the Nonprofit Network, and they've had some great suggestions how to ultimately end up with meetings with the public. I'm not sure because we don't have those pinned down on the schedule yet. We want to make sure people are available of exact dates, but we're looking at having that start up in late April or early May as far as having members of the public come tell us what they experienced, like I talk about, so we can make sure that the computer model is matching with what people actually experienced in the field. And that allows our folks to forecast where the problems are and figure out how to solve the problems. So that's just a quick status update of where we're at with those studies.
Questions or comment? So the community meetings will be for the West Willow neighborhood and Oaklawn Hawthorne off of E-Course, is that correct?
Yes, and right now we envision those being separate meetings because it's different groups of people, and they may or may not have they certainly have different geographic problems and issues, and we want to be able to solve the problems in this area with this system and the problems in that area with that system. So we anticipate kind of a parallel process. So it will be a little bit busy for some of us that want to be at all of those meetings.
And we can coordinate that, and we can do special mailers out of
Yep.
community engagement, because I do think people would want to engage on if they knew about it.
Yep, and we'll
coordinate with you, Matt Parks, or who?
Yeah, Matt Parks is on the lead for OHM, so he'll be staying in touch with the township directly, and, any times that we figure it should be my office and the township together, we'll all get together and work on, what's the best location for this neighborhood or that neighborhood for a meeting if we expect a lot of people to come.
Okay.
I know there have been a lot of folks who've been willing to help out with that in the past.
And the other one that's on the agenda is a Baisley Foster drain.
Yes.
And we're petitioning for that to be improved. And it's between Superior Township and Ypsilanti Township. There was flooding at it's right across from the pond where Victorious Life Church is located. And the line goes back to Rue DeVille or Rue Willette in the back of the houses. And there was flooding there. So Evan's team went out and identified a possible solution to it.
Yep.
So that petition is moving forward as well for those residents.
Yep.
Good things are happening with trying to identify flooding issues, and the study will tell us recommendations, right, on how to fix it.
So the study for the Ypsi Township number 1 and that Low Lawn area, those will provide the recommendations for you. On Baisley Foster, we've already given the recommendation, so it's pretty straightforward. You've just got folks that are at the very high end of a drainage watershed, and they've never really been provided public service, although they've been chipping in for the water going away maybe a little more slowly than some people would like. It's finally time to provide service to those folks.
So the estimated cost for the Baisley Foster, which is over on Clark and heading towards Sweet behind Rue DeVille or Rue Willette, it's around $275,000 to $330,000, and that'll hit next year's drain budget.
I would expect that next year's drain budget would be impacted, but that particular drain is not one that the township is solely responsible for. So the residents will pay a share, and the share to both Superior and Ypsilanti Township right now is estimated at about $115,000, and we anticipate that would be split equally between the two communities.
And then the township can also decide if we're going to pay for the residential share as well.
Yep.
And the study is around $400,000, right, for the West Willow neighborhood and the Oaklawn Hawthorne neighborhood. So we have asked the county to see if they would participate in funding that study to address the flooding issues. And we're meeting with our state officials on Friday as well. So we're going to keep asking. It doesn't hurt to ask, right? And
I've let the commissioners know for the districts, that are represented at the town, that represent the township. So Commissioners Hodge and Somerville, I've let them know. I think it would be a good idea for the county to chip in, and I have offered to sit down and talk with them further if they need more information. I know everybody's pretty busy, so hopefully they just check the box and send a check.
Yeah, and Evan, I just want to say again how much we appreciate everything you do for our residents. You respond to them, you're so helpful, and it's just, thank you for caring and wanting to move things forward.
I might have sent the road commission a couple of messages today. There were some wet spots when I was driving around, so.
I appreciate it,
Yep.
thank you. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions for Evan?
I just wanted to say that when you do the mailer, that including a way for somebody to report something if they can't attend a meeting would be helpful. So not everybody can get out to meetings, so if there's a way to, whatever we're trying to collect, if there's a way to get some input by a phone call or something, that would be really helpful.
Absolutely, absolutely. We take it multiple ways. Most of the time, we'll set up a project website that also allows for somebody to upload a photo and write their comments, but if they want to call, if they want to email, we want to have as many pathways as possible for any kind of outreach like that. The more we get from the resident, like I said before, we know a lot about how water likes to flow, but we haven't lived there for 30 years. So
They
if we
know
can
more.
get 30-year people and us getting our heads together, then we're going to have the best solutions recommended. Okay?
Thank you, Evan.
Yep, thank you all.
The next item on the agenda are the minutes of the February 6, 2024 regular meeting, and I sent an email out for suggestions for corrections. We have statements and checks. We need a motion.
Sorry, support, or so move.
Motion, Rowe. Support Hunter to approve the consent agenda. Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Please let the record reflect that Treasurer Eldridge will not be attending the meeting. Attorney report. Mr. Winters, is there any general legal update?
Very general in the sense that, as the board is aware, this board it continues to receive and approve a number of contracts for infrastructure improvements, some of which were funded by the ARPA dollars and some of which are funded by the MDNR grants. And I think during the last 30 days, Director Hines and myself have spent a great deal of time trying to make sure that the contractors who've been awarded the contract actually produce the signed agreements, the insurance certificates, all of the required performance bonds, et cetera. And as you know, the community center park and the Clubview pickleball courts, that contract was awarded to A.R. Brower, and likewise, they were awarded the contract for the Ford Lake Park shelters and the West Willow Park shelter. Those contracts alone are north of $1 million in total, in total funding. So Director Hines says with the engineers, we have the engineers from Stantec, we have engineers from Spicer Group, we have OHM, they're all doing different parts of the infrastructure preparation. All of the contracts that were approved at the Township Board meeting on February 6th have now been signed by the contractor, including the one for the community center. That was the building, of course, that was heavily damaged back in December of 2022 when a frozen pipe burst, or pipe became frozen and burst. So those contracts are about $1.7 million, and I just want to at least advise the board that those contracts have now been returned to the Township, and I thank John Hines for following through, because when you're dealing with this many projects at one time, and I don't think in the Township's history we've had as many infrastructure projects that are ongoing, all of which are important. You have some other ones that are still being worked on in regards to the pond, the parking lot, and other projects too. So it's important that those get executed, because everybody is going to have a construction schedule that might at times be competing for space and attention. So the sooner they can get started, the better it's going to be for the Township and for the community. Also, very briefly, we continue to negotiate with other interested parties who are looking to purchase Township property in what's called the Seaver Farm North. The Township did close the deal with Aldi Incorporated for the 2.53 acre parcel. Their plans are to have that store under construction this spring and open, I believe, sometime this summer. And as a result of that sale, other industry parties are coming forward and asking for information that we believe is going to lead to a purchase agreement, which if it does, will come back to this township board for consideration. And finally, HR Manager Wallen and Supervisor Stumble and myself continue to meet with the firefighters in regards to contract negotiations. Those have been going on for some time, well, beginning of the year. And I think right now we're at a point where a tremendous amount of progress has been made. And I think in the next month or so, we should see a contract come forward for this board's consideration. So just kind of a capsule of what's going on with the infrastructure, property sales. We still have all the public nuisance cases that some of them are on the board's agenda this evening. And so there's a lot going on in the township, and so we'll do our best to keep the board fully apprised.
Thank you, Mr. Winters. Are there questions or comments? You're right, there's a lot going on. The next item is Resolution 2024-03, which is a request to authorize Washtenaw County Water Resource Commission petition for the Baisley Foster drain that we discussed earlier with Evan Pratt. Clerk Rowe.
I have Charter Township of Ypsilanti resolution regarding the Baisley Foster drain. Whereas the municipality of Ypsilanti Township hereby petitions the Washtenaw County Resources Commissioner to clean out, relocate, widen, deepen, straighten, tile, extend, or relocate along a highway as needed the Baisley Foster drain. And whereas the municipality of Ypsilanti Township acknowledges that it will be liable for an assessment at large for a percentage of the total amount to be levied for the proposed work, and whereas it has been determined necessary to proceed as soon as possible to accomplish the aforesaid improvements, now therefore it be resolved that the municipality of Ypsilanti Township hereby petitions the Washtenaw County Water Resources Commissioner to clean out, relocate, widen, deepen, straighten, tile, extend, or relocate along a highway as needed the Baisley Foster drain. Be it further resolved that a certified copy of this resolution be attached to the petition, and be it further resolved that the supervisor and clerk shall be authorized to execute the petition on behalf of the Township Board. So move.
Support Peterson.
Motion Rowe, support Peterson. Is there discussion or questions on that? We'll keep everyone posted on the actual cost once what portion is the Ypsi Township, and if we frequently pay for the residents if we petition for it. So, all right, motion support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This is exciting. We're going to have the request to approve the agreement with Eastern Michigan University for operation of a rowing course on Ford Lake contingent upon attorney review.
So move.
Motion Rose, support Hunter. Are we going to have a presentation? John?
Yes, good evening. John Hines, Municipal Services Director. So we are bringing forward a request to approve 5-year agreement contingent on attorney review for a 5-year agreement for Eastern Michigan University for the rowing course located on Ford Lake. Do have Andrew Roden and Kim Savage here to give a short presentation, answer any questions, but it's a very exciting venture that Eastern has started with the township as well as the Marriott Hotel and Destination Ann Arbor to install a rowing course along the bottom of Ford Lake Park. So if you guys want to come up and give your presentation.
John, I want to thank you, too, for helping to attend all the meetings, and this moved quickly once we got the sponsorship, and EMU and John, you've been wonderful to work with.
Brenda, you stole my thunder. I was actually going to thank John as well. And I did want to point out before we started, I wanted to congratulate Eric on the job as an Eastern grad. I think it's fantastic to have an EMU grad inside the building. But we did want to take a few minutes to really walk through the rowing course, what we're intending to do, what we want to build. So we did have a quick presentation we'll kind of slide through.
And you are?
And I just roll with that. My name's Andy Rowden. I'm the Deputy Athletic Director at Eastern Michigan in the Athletic Department. I tell people I actually oversee all the external relations, communications, marketing, things like that. But the fun part is, one of the sports I oversee is the rowing program. So when I arrived at Eastern about 7 years ago, Kemp walked into my office and said, if you want to do something, get this rowing course built. So we stand here today. and we're ready to really talk about building the rowing course and putting it in place and the difference it can make in the township. So that's kind of what we wanted to walk through today. We'll kind of scroll through just, again, the purpose of the course, the partnership, who's involved, how the construction looks. That's where I bring the expert with Kemp, who's seen these before with his experience, what it looks like event-wise, what we want to bring, and then really why we want to have a partnership with the township on this and all the benefits we see it bringing. So with that, on the actual, the purpose, again, is to build an 8-lane championship rowing course on Ford Lake. This is something that can host anything from high school events into large-scale national events. So it's something that we think would be tremendous as a way to show off the community, a way to improve our student-athlete experience, and then generate a good, significant economic impact for the community and the township, which I think is the fun part. And then as we talk with our friends at the Destination Ann Arbor and the Sports Commission, really plant our flag as a hub for rowing in the Midwest, which has been fun, and we'll kind of fill you in on that as we go through this. So I did want to mention our partners. First of all, Destination Ann Arbor has been fantastic, and the Ann Arbor Sports Commission. So I have Mike Price and Megan Hughes here as well. And then also, we couldn't have done this without our friends at the Marriott Eagle Crest, who are positioned very well to watch all of our races. So Dominic Smart and his team have been fantastic to come aboard and understand this, the vision of what we want and what we want to do with the course itself. Obviously, Eastern Michigan, we're very invested for our student athletes. And then John and Brenda and Doug also talking with you on the phone, going through and trying to explain to the township, this is what we're trying to build, and this is the vision we have for the course itself. So the biggest question that always comes to mind with this, what's a rowing course cost? And the estimate right now, it's about $487,000, which I'm happy to say is something we're taking on between Eastern Michigan University, Destination Ann Arbor and the Sports Commission, and the Marriott Eagle Crest. We have the funding fully in place for this, so we're not coming and asking for money from the township. We actually see this as a benefit for other reasons for the township and the partnership. But in that, it does include, as Kemp will explain, the 8-lane rowing course, a new starting dock, which is essential for the course, a platform for the starting, everything you need to run a true regatta and a world-class race from there. So I'm going to have Kemp take over and kind of walk you through what it looks like to have the course installed and who's going to be doing the installation.
It's submergible, right?
It does, yep. So the course itself, as Kemp will explain, when it's not in use, it drops to the bottom of the lake, so it doesn't impact anything.
So it doesn't, yeah.
So I'm Kemp Savage. I've been at Eastern Michigan as a rowing coach for 16 years, and this is my 10th year as a head coach. So I've lived on Ford Lake for my entire professional life, and this is exciting because it really is a chance to show off really an amazing part to the entire community in the U.S. and maybe even beyond. So the installer will be Tim Royalty of Precision Rowing. He has installed pretty much every course in the North America and Central America, including the 1984 Olympic course and the 1996 Olympic course. And I believe he is on the docket to do LA when it comes up. He's done all the NCAA courses. He's the on-call maintenance for any NCAA. They fly him in and he stays there. So he is the expert in North America. There are other companies that do it in Europe, but it's basically him for the North America side. So what does the rowing course look like to Ford Lake? So the only part that will be the rowing course in this map is the green area. The rowing course is fully submergible. It rises on floating buoys from the bottom of the lake so that it doesn't interfere with any boat traffic in the day-to-day, and you can bring it up or take it down within about 8 hours. So a setup and tear down is about 8 hours for the full course. If you're going to put 1 or 2 buoy lines up, it obviously is a lot shorter. And as we go on, we can start with the start area. So the start area will be at Big Island Park. And so you can see there are 8 lanes in this course. A typical race uses 6 lanes, but in case there are any referee additions or anything that happens in another race in the progression, we can go to 8, and it allows us a lot of space. The wonderful part about Ford Lake that makes it so desirable is the expensive part of a rowing course is the geography. Sarasota spent $15 million dredging out 500 meters of rowing course. Ford Lake is perfect. It's deep enough for any level of regatta, from local small high school to it carries everything you need for a world championship when it comes to depth and open and length. So we would start at Big Island State or Park. The starting dock is modular and removable. You can see here, it would start right across that. Each of those is actually a small section, and they can connect together and be pulled out of the water so that you don't have to leave them in the entire time. It doesn't cause any navigational hazards. It can also be pivoted over towards the shoreline. If there's a bigger like if there's a 2-week event, we can just pull it over so we don't have to fully take it out of the water if necessary, if there's going to be a bigger event. Keep going. This is the start line of where the last NCAA's was in Pensacola, New Jersey. This is the Cooper River. Having been there, that's where our conference championship is. Their starting line is actually on the shore, which has some problems with depth. They've actually had to do a lot of dredging out there. And again, the wonderful part about Ford Lake is that's already done. You can't create depth. Well, you can, it's just very expensive. This actually, we wanted to put this up because this actually is what the course looks like. If you look very closely, there's a bunch of small buoys. That was all you will need to see of the course. When it's up, that's what comes up. All the buoys are on a 5-foot leader. Sorry, a 2-meter leader. I'm cutting it off a little bit there. Everything's in meters and rowing, sorry, it's a 6-foot leader. That's roped so that it's fully navigable by anybody. Even when the course is floated up, you can drive across it with a motorboat as long as you're not just running over buoys. Is the only time that gets into trouble. Otherwise, the course floats to the bottom without the buoys on it. We can go to the next slide. We can kind of get an idea. The finish line spectator area. The other part is, again, geography is wonderful on Ford Lake because it puts Ford Lake Park right at the finish line, which is a spectacular spot for visitors to see the race, to set up a finish line area, and to be able to have a full event and not have people too far away and not able to see what we're trying to produce here. To give you kind of a comparison, this is the finish line area at the Cooper River. It's a much smaller space. It's much harder to get parking into. It's much harder to really run a large-scale regatta compared to what we already have at Ford Lake Park. They bring in temporary bleachers, and you can see their small temporary finish line tower, which is that kind of shed right there to the right. Then we can go to our staging area. Again, what we've done with the park, or what the parks have done to make the ability to build a rowing course is amazing. When we originally started the boathouse, this was a dead area owned by the township, and we worked together with the township and the DNR to build it into what it is now. And it has a large open space that was originally a multi-use field. It's a perfect place for trailer parking when we have large events because everyone in rowing travels all their equipment, so you have to have a place to keep it overnight and race out of it. You'll also see there with the plan there's some expansion to the floating structure of the dock so that we can host and launch more boats at the same time. That's also part of the whole package. And next. So again, we're using the Cooper River because it's where we host or have our conference championships in New Jersey. I believe when we map this out, the size and space of this gray area that they have for trailer parking is 2/3 of the size of we have. So they host NCAA championships here with that much space, and we have even more, which is just, it's an incredible geographic ability to do things that other places can't do, or do it easier and make a better experience for student athletes and coaches and the township. The construction process. So this is what you really want to know the answers to. The only permanent parts of this course are the 2 green anchors. So there's 2 at each end, and the line that goes across. That is what actually sits down. Everything else is removable between events, and typically also we take all the laterals out over the winter just to protect the cable and the course. So the red and yellow buoys that you see on here actually float the course up to the surface when it's in use, and then as soon as the buoys are unclipped, it sinks back down. There's the line you see coming off to the left anchors to the shoreline. so that it's still navigable, and that's what you use to trace out to the main line, and then you can pull everything up from there. So it makes it very easy to have any event you want on the lake. It doesn't interfere with the fishermen or any of the other people who are the really users of the lake besides the rowing section. Then we have an overhead view to kind of give you an idea of what that looks like. So again, when you look at this, the 4 black boxes are the anchors, and the 2 lines on the ends are all that are permanent in the lake. Everything else comes out between seasons or between events, depending on the time between them. For the buoys, this gives you, this is an actual picture of when they were setting up, I believe this is Oklahoma. When they were setting up their course, the buoys are 16-inch round, rubber inflatable, very simple. They're not super hard to navigate around. They're nice and easy to drive through if people want to use the lake on any day that the course is up. The construction timeline. Well, right now we're January 2024. We finally got the project fully funded. February and March, we're finalizing the approval with EMU was finalized in February. We're hoping that the finalization can happen tonight with Ypsilanti Township. Acquiring the permits with the DNR, who we've been in contact with. They have approved temporary permits in the past, and they're excited to look at this as a new usage of the lake for more people. The installation, April 2024. Try to get it in before our first home dual race, April 28th, and to actually christen the course as really a beach rowing in this area. To give you an idea of the collegiate schedule, because that does matter with the users on the lake, the typical rowing schedule has 2 parts. It has a fall section and a spring section. The fall section is a long course section. It would not use the buoy lines typically as much. We call it head race style. You can think of it kind of like cross country. Cross country goes through a longer course and lots of turns and ups and downs. We tend to follow a shoreline, or if it's a small river, follow the path of the river for about a 5,000 meter race. Spring is where the course would really get used. It's its fullest. These are shorter. You can think of them again like a 1 mile in college. Stay in your lane. You go. In our case, we don't have any turns, but straight away, no turns. Stay in, and that's what the buoys really give you, is a nice lane set. Our schedule, we just had our first race last Saturday down in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. We travel in April, and the majority of the college season happens in very late March or the middle or full of April, with championships usually in the conference championships in the second week of May and the NCAA championship in the last week of May. One of the nice things for us is I believe the parks don't open until right around when the NCAA championship happens. So most of the collegiate season is during a time when the parks are not at their highest usage. The potential in national events. Number one, I think that this would be an amazing spot for an NCAA rowing championship. There are only right now, there are 14 fully buoyed 8-lane courses in the United States. This would be number 15. Of those, only 10 of them meet all the requirements of the NCAA to have a championship. And we've made sure that everything here would meet all the requirements of the NCAA to have a championship. So we'd be one of 11, which is an incredibly unique thing when it comes to venues. That is the last weekend in May. It's 22 teams from the Division I. It is 6 teams from Division II and 12 teams from Division III. So it's all 3 championships are held in the same venue, which is a very nice thing, unlike basketball where it's all over the place. Everybody's in one spot. There's also the opportunity for the U.S. Rowing National Championships that happen during the summer, the U.S. Rowing Scholastic Championships that happen during the middle of May, U.S. Senior National Championship, and some of the speed orders that are in Florida right now, which is where they actually select the national team, could happen on our lake. Collegiate Club National Championships, the secretary of the Collegiate Club and one of the founding members is actually Michigan's men's club coach. So he's very interested in having a championship here. He's talked to us a long time about it. And then U.S. Rowing's Row Fest, which is their summer championship and their Masters championship, what happens over a week. Those would be the huge events. Then we can have smaller scale, kind of a medium-sized events, which would be the Michigan High School Championship, the EMU-sponsored regattas, possibly some of the conference championships, the Big Ten's looking for places, the CAA possibly. And then Midwest Scholastic Championships was currently held in Kensington on a short lake. Would be really nice to have on Fort Lake. So it wouldn't be a huge move in distance and would bring everybody here rather than in Kensington. And then the potential community events that we could pursue, youth camps, working with our John at the rec about maybe doing some local community camps, getting some more people out in boats. U.S. Rowing also has a really nice, they call it STEM to Stern, working with college math, science, engineering departments to expose middle school kids to math, science, and engineering, as well as rowing and swimming. So that's a place that I think Eastern Michigan has a great space. One of the people I'm on a committee with the CRCA is at Princeton, and her athletes love it. They really enjoy that time to work with those middle school populations. So I'll turn it back over to Andy to talk about what the economic impact could be.
Thanks, Kemp. I think the important thing to note when we went through the list of national and regional events is we don't want to do all this at once. One thing with this, and the reason we want to have this usage agreement with the township is we want to work together and find the events that are right and the time that's right. So we don't overwhelm people with events coming into the township. We're doing things at a good pace where it helps to meet the needs of what we want to do, what our partnership, everybody wants to accomplish, makes sense for the township. So when we look at these, we talk about the economic impact, and this is where Mike and Megan are great. They can geek out on the numbers. They've got calculators to help us tell. We know what a great event looks like from a rowing side, but what's it mean to the township, and what's it mean to the community? And these national events, they range anywhere from really a $1.5 to $3 million estimated impact for the township when you host one, which is bringing people into beautiful hotels on lakes, the restaurants. The poor Kroger down the street is going to get overrun by rowing parents and student athletes or athletes that are here. So that type of impact. It also, even the regional events are a great driver of impact for the township itself. And also, it's going to increase the exposure for Ypsi Township of how beautiful a place this is, a beautiful lake. Why wouldn't you want to come back? So it's those types of impacts we want to make. And I just wanted to really stress the scheduling part of this too, because it is, as we've talked about, the NCAA bids, we've put in a bid for 27 and 28. So you're looking years out, and we're planning years out for these types of events. It's not like okay, we've got the course, we're going to put 12 events on the lake and really upset the residents of the township, because that's not what we want to do. So we did have a visit a few months ago from U.S. Rowing. They came into town because they got wind of what we're trying to build here with the rowing course. So this is a quote from the director of competition from U.S. Rowing. And throughout her visit, John was gracious enough to come out and talk her through the park, the setup, what we can host. Megan did a great job of hosting her through the community, but she was in love with just what we're building and what we're trying to accomplish here, and could really envision U.S. Rowing becoming an active participant in the course and how they use it. And she actually is the one that brought up Row Fest with us, and that event, what we could do, and then other things and other ways that we could use the course and bring events to the township. So with that, I did want to talk a little bit about major event setup. So when we're talking about some of these national events, two things Kemp mentioned. He talked a lot about the geography of Ford Lake Park. And when you go to pretty much the vast majority of the courses around the country, there's no separation between spectators and athletes, which is fun for the parents, not fun for the athletes and the coaches. They try and keep them focused on races and what they're doing. We have that here between the two areas, which is fantastic. Ford Lake Park, the way it lays out, is a great space for us to be able to have a finish line where the spectators, the fans, can watch a race. We can have the judges with the finish line, telling who's winning the race. Really do everything they need to do, and then the coaches can take the athletes back to Lakeside and go there. So we just wanted to show you a brief layout with this, and also talk about when with these events, like the NCAA championships, things like that, working hand in hand with the township where I'm interested in driving revenue to the township and to the community, and it's not, for us at Eastern, really not a revenue driver. So we've talked with John and Brenda about the idea of the NCAA championships, using the park, letting the park collect parking vehicles in the park, but then as a driver for the township to be able to do what you guys want to accomplish on your, as you see the long list of business agenda items you have every month as you go through things. So this kind of gives you just a look of how we would use the park, where we'd set things up. It's really the peninsula area for spectators to be able to watch the racing. And then when you go from there into, as Kemp kind of described on the next slide, we'll show just the boathouse and dock area, and using that space really to separate the athletes out and take them away from the spectators, let them focus on their racing and what they want to accomplish. So just wanted to kind of break that down a little bit for everybody so you understand. And then we also mentioned Kemp does have a race coming up on April 28th. So if everything comes together perfectly and the course is in place, we want to have a kickoff event. We're still finalizing the details on that, but it's something we want to embrace. And U.S. Rowing wants to fly in to be a part of that. The NCAA site rep wants to come up and visit and see the race happen, but also see what we've built here. So there's a lot of attention that's kind of waiting for us to finalize this, but it's something that we think as an event to kick off would look great for the township and for a way to introduce the course as really a way to plant our flag, as Mike keeps saying, it sticks in my head, is plant our flag as the hub in the Midwest. So with that, the hope tonight really is that we can just kind of signify the bond between Ypsi Township and Eastern with the usage of this course. And Again, yep, and keep saying it and saying we're gonna work together, because that's the important part. Is we value this is a partnership between us. It's not something that we want to just run with. We want to increase the exposure for Ypsi Township and really bring people to the township so they can see how great it is and make an impact. So it's really, we just want to walk you through that, and happy to answer any questions you might have.
And just for like a point of information, we're voting on the submergible rowing course. That's what our MOU is for, right?
Thank you, Andy.
And then I
Thank you,
wanted to
Kemp.
say that we also, John and I and Robin Hines, were also in the meetings and talked about coordination of parking revenue. We know that with Jazz Fest, we parked 1,000 cars there. And when I say we, I mean Robin and the volunteers. So the logistics of that will be worked out with Robin, who oversees special events for the township. And I also wanted to say that when we had the first agreement for the boathouse, it was really stressed to us how important it was for Title IX and for women to have the opportunity to get scholarships. And by expanding it even more, this gives more exposure for some of the attracting people to EMU, and for people in our community who go to our high schools and our junior highs, or even, like you said, elementary, to get exposed to rowing, because I had no idea, and I considered myself an athlete. I had no idea what rowing was until it came here. I know our residents watch and love to watch the rowing practices that you have. I've never had a complaint about it. It's always been positive, so the coordination has to occur. I love it's submergible, and therefore it won't affect the boating on days that they're not in operation. I love the fact that it coordinates well with the timing of when our park opens. Like, it's really using a park that doesn't really get used as much or generate as much revenue because the season doesn't start till the end of May. So there's so many positive things to talk about when we discussed it, and we're excited. It moved fast. The funding, I want to thank the Marriott Hotel in the township, Destination Ann Arbor, which is Ypsi Real as well. I mean, I think we've been talking about it 10 years, is it? I know you and I have been in meetings before, and COVID really put a wrinkle into a lot of it. So this is going to be just a great opportunity for everyone and all the partners, and I, for one, appreciate it very much and welcome it. Any other questions or comments from board members?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. Great presentation. Thank you. I liked just about everything we heard. I'm a EMU alum, so I'd just love to see this partnership happen with the township. And thanks to all involved parties for making it, come together like it has. I'm really kind of interested in the possibility for the youth camps. That sounds really cool. My younger brother rowed crew in high school, so I'm a little bit familiar with the sport. I myself didn't row. My experience is Planet Fitness and hitting that row machine. So that's as closest to the water as I've ever gotten. But the possibility of kids getting involved at a young age and, maybe getting some diversity in the sport, love the whole idea. My question kind of centered, and I'm not sure if this is the right question for you, but I'm going to pose it anyway, which is, well, first, we have a beautiful lake, and just the idea of getting national exposure for Ford Lake and our area is just awesome. But with regattas bring spectators. I don't know what the tailgate party crew is like for sports, but I'm a little bit concerned about making sure that our area doesn't become, a refuse for folks that might get a little too amped up for a crew meet or a crew regatta. So I'm just curious, is there any precaution or any safeguard that will be in place to be sure that our lake doesn't become, polluted?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. It's a rowing regatta is kind of different than any other type of sporting event that I've been to. They've done I guess the best way to put it, you race at different times. So it's not like a football game when you think about that and you go and tailgate for hours and then come on in and you leave your tailgating stuff behind. Rowing parents typically, they show up, they walk to where they need to go, and for most of the courses they go to, it's a long walk, or if they get on a bus and get shuttled over. So it's the tailgating and that side of it is not too huge. As far as the way we would leave the park, it's something that we're going to work hand in hand, and we're going to build into any plan we have. What's the trash pickup? What's the cleanup? How are we leaving the park better than how we found it the day before the regatta started? So it's not something where we want to walk away and say, John, good luck cleaning up, or Robin, good luck. We take pride in the park. We take pride in the fact that we row on the lake every day, and I want these guys to row, the student athletes to row all the way into June as they compete for national titles, which that's part of my job is to keep reminding him for that. But we want the park to be beautiful when we leave it. And same thing with the Boathouse Lakeside Park as well. So not only Ford Lake Park, but also going where the other teams in the competition area we showed you, making sure that's left is still a beautiful field that's just ready for the next event or the next group to come in and take part of it. So I think that's part of the planning we would have.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add as well, part of the agreement is working with myself and Robin Castle-Hines, who's overseeing the community events. Every year before the next season, we're going to sit down and look at what's projected for the schedule. And much of these events, some of them are going to be a little smaller scale that won't need as much township kind of attention day of. But when you look at the bigger events like RowFest, U.S. Rowing Championships, NCAA Championships, the township's going to be very much involved, much, like a Jazz Fest where we're going to help coordinate the parking if we're not doing all the parking, help coordinate the trash pickup, help coordinate the before event and after event. So they're going to be working very much in hand with the township to make sure that the park is, one, still accessible to the residents that still want to use the park and the community members, but also, in fantastic shape and everything goes as smoothly as possible.
The only other thing I'd add to that, for NCAA, the larger scale events, the planning starts years in advance. Mm-hmm. So if we're awarded an NCAA championship in 2027 or 28, we're going to start planning in 24 or 25. It's going to take years to get ready. So, and that way we know our plans are fully thought out and ready to be executed.
Questions or comments from, Trustee Newman?
Okay. All right. Well, first of all, this is very exciting. It's exciting in that it's not only exciting for Eastern Michigan because it can set you all apart from all the other colleges, but it's also exciting for Ypsilanti Township because of the exposure. So I have a couple questions. Which is the next closest fully buoyed rowing facility in the Midwest or?
So I would say they're kind of equidistant from here. Cincinnati at Lake Harsha, which is about 45 minutes outside of Cincinnati, it's I think it's Bethel, Ohio. And then the other is Indianapolis at Eagle Creek, which is, again, it's about 30 minutes outside of like downtown Indianapolis.
Okay. And the next question is, when there are those races, and probably because it's early in the year, will it hinder spectators on the water from watching the event?
Part of the major events do have, typically part of like an NCAA is having an agreement with, like in this case, I believe Washtenaw Sheriff's Department. They're on the water patrol. The spectators can be on the water as long as they aren't actively affecting the race. So a no-wake zone, if they want to park and anchor and watch, I believe that the NCAAs I've been at, they've all had that. There's also transit times. If people want to go fish that aren't on the course, there's space in there that they clear for transit time. So if someone wants to go to the other side of the lake, clear and go. So it's built in for the community to still be able to use the lake even at the big events. And for our small events, we just ask for no wake and we kind of deal with whatever happens. And everyone has always been great about it. So, yeah.
And just one incidental question. How many people attend these events?
It varies. You know, the event we talk about that we have our dual race, so it's just ourselves and Dayton. It's probably around 200 people that show up. If you have an NCAA championship or a row fest, it's probably about 5,000 people. So there's a wide variety. And again, that's the nice part is everything's scalable. And we aren't going to host a row fest next year and not have a plan on 5,000 people. But 200 people, we've had a couple small events and it works out really nicely. And I think the park gets left pretty clean. I hope so, because we try and check and make sure before we leave so that we can kind of build up to those bigger events and have everybody prepared in the right place.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. Trustee Swanson?
So I had a couple. The first question I had was about the lake bed, because it's a man-made lake. So I'm wondering about when it sinks down, you know, there's a lot of muck and stuff down there. Is there a problem because of like that specific characteristic of our lake?
There is not. The lake, they've been built on fully flowing rivers. Tim's very experienced. You look at the Brazil Olympics, same course design, and that was on a lagoon that was very soft bottom. So the bottom here should not be a problem.
Okay. And then the other one was another question that kind of went along with that. So I know we're only doing the submersible or the submergible right now. When you showed the diagram of the lake, the boathouse, and the large green area that's now a field, just for future thinking, I don't know if that's part of, like, where we're like, this means we're going to go. But one of the concerns I have about that is, we need to be thinking about porous surfaces. So I would be concerned about putting something in that's for parking that's only used for a certain amount of time, because right now we have green space and we have to be careful about erosion and those types of things. So and I'm sure that because you care about the lake, this is part of it, that's just something that I wouldn't consider it dead space. I would consider it like space that supports our environment.
The original park was dead space before the DNR
right.
grant. That's a multi-use field, I believe is how it's labeled.
Okay.
And yeah, it's non-developed.
Okay.
It's still got some concrete in there in places. It's an interesting space. The nice part is a field is a typical place for us to park trailers, because there aren't a lot of places that have a giant parking lot next to a boathouse. Indianapolis, 3/4 of what they use for their trailer parking, because they don't have a ton of space, is just grass field. Okay. And theirs actually has a lot more trees on it, which is much harder to maneuver around with 60-foot long boats. Sarasota, where the World Championship is, it's the same thing. Only recently did the Cooper River, which has a much smaller area, they actually did crush rock their space because with that small area, and they were hosting every weekend, which is not something we were planning on doing. It got to be really tough if it rained and with the mud problem there. So we aren't going to have that expansion and that usage. So just a nice grass field is perfect for what we're trying to make happen.
And just for a point of information, Trustee Swanson, we're only voting on the submergible one, but that is a future. No, that is a future, yeah.
But here's the thing, like, when people go, I'm just a trustee, I'm not a full-time official. So when I see a presentation, and
Can
I
you speak
understand, I said right from the get-go, I know that this was only the submergible. I prefaced it with that. But when we have, like, presentations, what I get concerned about is if I'm thinking of big picture stuff, like, I want people to hear it in the room. I wasn't in the room when this went forward. So that's partly my concern, okay? And at that point, and again, sitting on the rivershed, like in that council, like that's the kind of stuff we're talking about right now, like erosion and the things we need to protect. And Ford Lake is a beautiful asset. So I just want to make sure that, when we get going, that it's just on the table. I'm grateful. I think it's a great presentation. I think it's fabulous to have it here. But I also don't want to sit here and be remiss in saying, hey, this is something that I'm a little concerned about.
Right.
So the other, I have a couple more, there's not too many, but the other question I have is we know that we have PFAS and we have some other things in the water that it's a beautiful lake, but we do know, so how does that factor in? I know they're not in the water, we're not swimming in the water, but we have no fish, there are concerns with the water quality in not just our lake, and a lot of the rivers and other things. So how does that factor into an event that's going to bring a lot of people here? We want it to be safe, we want it to be great, but is there any concern about that? I know your athletes are already on it, so just tell me a little bit about that.
Yes.
Please.
There have been different things that have happened at different venues, and for a while, the Occoquan Reservoir, which is another area, had a bacterial outbreak, and they rode on it every day. They just had very strict rules about not touching the water, not drinking the water. If you do get water on you, washing off quickly. The Occoquan Reservoir is a great example because they're very protective of anything that goes into the water because it's a reservoir. So it's pretty typical to have a background of these are the rules of the water. So I think with where we're at with the PFAS, and it should not be an issue because even any submersion is very quick. As an accident, it happens very, very, very rarely. But that's why we have safety officials to pull people out if that does happen. And it removes kind of a lot of that danger aspect.
And even the no swim, because it's a no swim lake, so that would all be part of the understanding when things are hosted that that can't happen.
The Occoquan Reservoir is the same thing.
Okay.
Historically, you threw your cocks in the water. That's a place where it's not allowed because of it being a reservoir. They don't want anybody in the water that could do anything, have anything that could contaminate the water supply of Northern Virginia. So it's a pretty standard. The rules are pretty held to. I think in that case, they actually, if they have people get thrown in, they are vacated their win and moves on to the next team. So we have pretty good structure in place to prevent people from not following the rules.
Okay, and so then the others are just a couple, they're not really questions, they're just kind of comments. Again, I realize we're only voting on submerging this, but I just want to be clear, like if I've heard it, I just want to be clear. So one of the things Trustee Hunter already mentioned was about like youth. And I would hope like long-term we'd be thinking about more than just a clinic because we have, like, I don't know that children, I teach in one of the local school systems. I don't think that we have people, a lot of kids at this point that would even know that this is an option to be an athlete in this, would even know how to get started, would even know any of that kind of stuff. And so we have a university where you could possibly get a scholarship to. We have a resource that's going to be used for other people to compete. It just seems like having the opportunity for the local children to do more than a clinic is really important, and how that gets started, I don't know, because you got to have a coach, you got to have things, but but they don't know right now what they don't know. So I think
Yeah.
long-term thinking, once this gets up and rolling or whatever, it would be really nice to see, because on the Park Commission, when the boathouse, but even before the boathouse, when they wanted to row, it was a community that's not in our community that partnered up with Eastern to kind of bring that here. And at that point, I mean, this is almost 15, 20 years ago, the idea was, well, we'll get it started, and then the kids in the local area would be able to do it, and that never really materialized from what I can see in the school system that I'm in.
We are very interested in working with the STEM to STERN program, and that ends up being they typically are 2 days a week in the afternoons, where they do leave an hour and a half with classroom work of, getting to go to the biology lab at Eastern Michigan and working with the professors there, and then an hour and a half. It's a great program. It was started during COVID, and I think we kind of got around the edges of it. Then we were about to start, and then our pool had some issues, so we couldn't get it fully running. But I know that it's definitely been on our radar, and as we've talked to US Rowing, something we want to continue to strive towards.
Okay, that would be awesome.
I think it's.
And then the last comment is just that I look.
Also,
Oh, sorry.
we also host the Special Olympics of Michigan kayaking event at the boathouse. So this would be another kind of addition to that. So we are trying to get more programming for the community there. I guess
Great. So the last comment I would have is just this idea that the lake's an asset, and this is going to be successful. I mean, it sounds like just the way it's framed, we've got the right resources. One of the things is just to have this really strong communication, which we already have. This idea that what we want is that park to be as useful and helpful for as many things as possible. And so whatever you're learning, whatever we're learning, we want to be able to host not just rowing. Like Ford Lake is a beautiful place to hold a lot of different things. And as we learn and we build up the infrastructure for large events, we all kind of need to be sharing and talking about that so that we can celebrate and it be win-win. And I'm not saying this isn't win-win, but that's just like this idea that we all communicate with that, like where we're going, where we're headed, what's needed for whether it's a jazz festival, whether it's a rowing competition, all that's really important so that we can create a space that's useful for a lot of different things and serves the community well and serves the purpose of the other events well. So that's the last thing I'd want to say.
Thank you. Trustee Swanson, are there any other comments?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just a comment. You already asked my question. Mine was about attendance. Doing the Jazz Festival the last couple of years has been massive. Just wanted to know your numbers, and you did say that. But I just want to say to Destination Ann Arbor, Eastern, to John, this should be a great event for the township. And we salute you. Anything, we bring to the township, we want it to be the best. And I really think you got a good program to bring to Ypsilanti Township. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Peterson. Mr. Winters, do you have anything to add?
No, I think I went over the agreement before, and may have some other small edits to make, but I think we're in good shape from the mutual use agreement. I'm kind of curious because of what Trustee Swanson brought up. There is actually before that dam, before the lake existed, there was a Huron River. There's a bridge at the bottom of that lake. I have no clue as to where that bridge is located. I've been reading some more about it just now as to how long that bridge is. Is that part of the actual course? Because it's a pretty massive bridge from what I can recall.
It will go under the course, but it is right around the 750 meter mark. And if you looked at the laterals that run across, they'll be at 500 and 1,000. So when it's down, it might drape over the bridge, but when it's submerged, it might drape over the bridge, but it'll float right up outside of it.
The bridge I was talking about is the one under the water already.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's right at Loon Feather Park over to basically kind of where the soccer field on Ford Lake Park is where that bridge runs. It actually runs right beside where the gas mains run.
Was that Harris Bridge, Mr. Winters?
Oh, it was called the Tully Hill Road Bridge, I think. Is it actually connected Harris Road, Grove Road over to the Tully Hill, I guess.
Great, so the motion and support is to approve the agreement contingent upon attorney's review and approval, and we will work quickly on that because I know you're on a time frame. But again, thank you everyone who did attend. Destination Ann Arbor is here, as well as the general manager of the Marriott Hotel. So it's a great partnership, and thank you very much. So we have a motion support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is to approve the proposal for services from life after incarceration, transition, and reentry in the monthly amount of $9,000 for litter pickup in our community, which is budgeted in line item 266-301-830-004.
So move.
Motion Rowe,
Peterson?
support Peterson, and I know, oh, there you are. Lori?
Evening.
There's a mic on.
There we go. Usually I don't need a mic, I'm pretty loud.
True.
We're bringing forth tonight a proposal to do a pilot program to help beautify our community, and I think it's perfect that we came right after the rowing presentation because that'll be a great event, and when people come here to the community to enjoy our assets, we would love for them to enter and exit and drive around and have the environment look welcoming and beautiful and not have a lot of trash along our roads. I know most of you are very aware that trash is the second highest complaint we get going to community meetings and neighborhood watch, and working with community engagement and resources, we get a lot of phone calls about trash that's along the roadways and not being picked up. And it's my understanding that before I was part of the township workforce, when I was just a person living here, we had other services that kept that trash picked up for us. Originally, I think the county work program did that kind of work for us, and then an organization called Michigan Ability Partners had that contract pre-COVID, and then COVID, of course, occurred and shut all that kind of work down, and neither the county or MAP has reactivated those programs. I think it's basically probably a personnel issue for both of them. They haven't had the personnel to do it, and we have a new partner who is interested in doing a pilot with the community later, who are here to answer your questions tonight. And that is life after incarceration, transition, and reentry. These women are OTs. Dr. Gonzalez and Ms. Boyle are OTs that work hands-on with the folks in the work program, and this gives them an opportunity to expand their services. We're already working with them at our Holmes Road Community Network Center. They've been using the space for groups and art projects, and it's worked out really well. We've had a good collaboration, and they are proposing tonight to do a pilot with the township where they could start to help do reentry work program where folks gain skills. These are folks who already live in our community, and this helps them with the reentry process and gets them connected to community and invested in community as well as we are. So the proposal is that we start with 5 work zone areas that are basically the entry and exit points to the township, and we see how that goes. If it works really well, I could see potential in expanding that. Our thought is it's going to take longer initially to get those areas in good shape, but once they're back on a regular schedule of pickup, they've been neglected for a while now, so initially it's going to take a little longer to get them all picked up, but then there'll be more time within this contract to expand the areas because we'll have those areas on a regular pickup schedule, which won't require as much time. We've also talked about their ability to possibly maintain some of our rain gardens and the prairie that's at Sugarbrook Park that currently no one is attending to. The volunteers who put it in no longer kind of attend to it. And so that's another opportunity, I think, for the township for beautification. And they'll also address some of the trash cans that are at the AAT bus stops and just out in the general community along the roads, get those emptied and keep them looking nice so there's not trash spilled all over the place. Okay.
Say anything? I also know part of your process and expertise is meditation, is that correct?
So that is an event that we recently had. And actually, we're having another event related to art. One of our clients is actually leading it, actually at the Holmes Road location this Thursday is the first group, if anyone is interested. It's a community event. The meditation thing, although that is something that we do with people, it's not like our one sole thing. So my name is Ariana. I'm executive director and founder of Later Occupational Therapist, as Lori had said, and this is Elise. She's also an occupational therapist. We're both currently the only full-time occupational therapist at Later. Currently, we work with individuals coming into the community from DOC, so Department of Corrections will send us individuals that are on parole. And then we also work with individuals inside the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Office, following them into the community groups and one-on-one services. So this is something that we have been wanting to expand to the point where we're developing a work program. So this happened to be just kind of a perfect fit. Our individuals, as you guys can imagine, do have difficulty finding jobs once they get out for various reasons. And so this is the perfect opportunity for them to have employment that is supported by occupational therapists. We'll be serving as supervisors until we get one of our guys trained. We've already identified that person. So yeah, I'm really excited and grateful that this is even an opportunity for us, but also for our guys. I know they're very excited about it. The potential of it, they're already giving ideas for all of the things for as far as like, how it's going to work all the way up to like, what kind of shirts are we going to have and the name for our group. So it's very exciting. And yeah, I'm here to answer any questions. And Elise, if there's anything I missed.
No, they're very excited. I was just going to say they're highly motivated, a group of people that are really ready to get started and very motivated to get involved in like the community and like help the community to like feel more connected and be involved with them. So.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, one question I have is how long would the pilot program last? Is it for the whole summer?
Yeah, I believe it's until
The contract
November.
is, I believe?
Yes.
Okay. Also, how many people do you estimate it would be on this work program?
Currently, we have.
And will they be, I'm sorry, and will they be coming every day, every 3 days, or what is it?
So right now, we have 5 individuals identified, and it will be part-time for these people. So they'll be kind of on rotating shifts. There's 5 different zones that the township has identified as high-need areas. So depending on where they're at, where they live, and their schedule, we're kind of placing people on those zones. And so one group of people might work, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and the other group might work Tuesday, Thursday. So it will be kind of a flexible kind of schedule.
So as far as hours, how many hours will they work that day?
So they're going to be working in shifts. Probably, we're hoping to keep them around like 4 hours, but it might go up to 8, depending on what they're doing, where they're at night. Especially at the beginning, we think it's going to take longer. They're all comfortable with the 4-hour shift, then a break, then keep going if we need to. It's kind of dependent on what the need is. But right now, it is a part-time thing. They understand that it's not going to expand to full-time anytime soon. So everyone's okay with the part-time hours in general.
Okay, thank you.
The contract calls for 15 hours per week or equivalent,
Yes.
and 75 total hours per week with 300 hours per month.
Yes.
And it does talk about having 5 part-time employees.
Yep.
Yes, I just had a question.
Trustee Newman?
Oh, thank you. And I know that, I guess the question is, will they be, paid to an extent where not like a McDonald's or anything, but, something that can give the re-entrants dignity or something like that?
I'm glad you asked that question. That was of high importance when we were considering, figuring out how this is going to work and what the cost would be. So we spoke with our group. Again, we met at the Holmes Road location with our group last month just to talk about what this would look like. We're starting around 16 an hour for the first 60 days, and then we'll increase it up to 18. So it is significantly higher than a job like McDonald's and closer to the kind of money you would make at a factory, which most of our individuals go for because of the money and the ability to sustain or to grow from that.
Okay, and will there be any other sort of funding?
So hopefully, right now, it's just this pilot starting small, but I do hope to allow it to expand, especially we already have individuals asking about, can we work more? Can we have more? They want to be full-time. So we're looking currently, but nothing identified yet.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Trustee Swenson?
So my question was a little bit along the lines of the dignity too.
Yeah.
The idea that, okay, Ipsy Township's going to have people picking up trash, and I'm grateful that you answered that question. It sounds like it's almost like you've not done this. This is a pilot even for you and us.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there's even an opportunity for even their ability to organize like a business and also some entrepreneurial kind of stuff if that gets embedded with it. So that's got to be really helpful too, to have the opportunity to kind of craft something that you can turn into something that feels good, even if it's not just for you, because it doesn't expand that far, but to be able to get it ready for another group of people and to have that cycle continue. So it sounds really positive. That was my one reservation. Sometimes you do nice things or you do things that are going to be helpful, and you don't want it to come across that, Ipsy Township just wants people who need help to be picking up trash. I don't want it to come across that way, and I'm not sure anybody else did, so that's why you asked the dignity question.
Yeah.
So keeping that in mind, I think that's just you don't want to do anything that's going to make life harder for people when they're trying to pull their life together.
Exactly.
And so thank you for, and Lori, thank you for thinking about how we could create something that would be helpful for everybody, the community and the picking up the trash and those types of things. And then the zones that you're talking about, so if someone's on probation, there's going to have to be some supervisory kind of impact with that too, right?
Right, yep.
I'll ask the hard questions,
Yeah,
I guess, right?
You're good, yeah.
So, because, that would probably be something that as people are building this life, the ability to show that progress is also important, and for the community to feel like that's also something that's been covered, but that would all be something that would be discussed and gone over with the people as they build that understanding, right?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
And we have contact. So these are individuals that we know personally through our work, and so we have contact with their agents if they are actively on probation or parole, and so we'll know all of that information and kind of coordinate that as needed. But I just want to thank you guys for bringing that up, because again, we're pretty protective over our people. We care a lot about them, and so that is the dignity piece was the most important thing. And the part that you brought up about the entrepreneurship and the opportunity to do program development, that is where when we had this meeting in February, they were very excited, they were coming up with the things. I was posing questions, how do we see ourselves doing this? Someone's like, we should take pictures, the township will before and afters. So all of that stuff, it's already been really fun to see them get engaged in something like that and start to help develop it. And like you said, even if it's not an end all, it's a place to build those skills and then go off somewhere.
It could be, there's no shortage of, there is no shortage of communities needing that piece to help. So I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, no, you're fine.
So
I was just gonna.
Can you speak into the microphone?
Okay, yeah. I was just going to say with the dignity piece too, as occupational therapists, we very much focus on meaningful work and what is purposeful to that individual. So when this idea was first proposed, we did seek out to that individual. We are going to train up to hopefully be in management to see if this would be even a good idea that's meaningful, because, there is stigma sometimes associated with picking up trash on the side of the lawn, especially with previously incarcerated individuals. So all the members, they did find a lot of pride in the work, like she said, but like the pictures, they have designs ready, they have the shirts ready. So they see it more as like something with pride and something that they want to actually help expand other than also just picking up trash too. So appreciate that.
Excellent. Any other, Mr. Winters?
No, I've reviewed the contract, and I also talked with Lori before the meeting about the before and after pictures is a great way of trying to show how the pilot program works, because it could be expanded depending on any number of factors. But obviously, I think the pride is what has always been lacking sometimes in the township, because you drive around, it's so disheartening to see the amount of trash and litter. Even today, I was driving and somebody threw out a cup just on the side of the road. So I know it's just the educational part is maybe also something that we need to do at the township level, but I think it's a great opportunity to see exactly how you can do the before and after as well.
Yeah. Any other comments? All right, so we have a motion and support to approve the agreement and authorize the supervisor and clerk to sign it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 4 is a request authorization for circuit court litigation to abate public nuisances at 1145 West Michigan, 161 Ecorse, 9725 Bemis, and 9645 Bemis, which is budgeted.
So move.
Motion Rowe,
Support Peterson.
support Peterson.
Good evening, Belinda Kingsley, Community Compliance Director. So I am here to request approval to bring forth litigation to resolve public nuisances on 4 different properties in the township.
Can you speak into the microphone, please? Thank you.
The first one is 1145 West Michigan, and that is right on the border of the city of Ypsilanti. And this property was purchased in 2018 by an LLC, and the last approved use by the Planning Commission was for a pet supply business in 2012. Nothing's been approved since then. We don't have any business registrations submitted for any uses on that property. And based on the signage on the building, it was occupied by Olympia Skate Shop that is now gone from that location. This property came to the attention of the Planning Department and Ordinance Department because of the blighted condition and non-approved uses that were on the property. And like I said, there was no business registration filed for that. Planning did issue a notice of violation in December that was ignored for the outdoor storage on the property. And then Ordinance sent a notice of violation in January and identified the business registration that was lacking, the unapproved storage outdoors of trailers, vehicles, tow trucks, semi-trucks, commercial vehicles, RVs, boats, etc., along with trash and junk and tree branches and pallets and a lot of other blight that needs to be removed. We asked them to cease the use of the fenced-in area on the side of the property for storage, and also they were storing semi-trucks in the back. We asked them to stop doing that. Remove anything that's inoperable or unlicensed or not related to a business that's on the property, and also a couple of dilapidated signs that are on the property and cover the unpermitted sign that's painted on the building. We really didn't get much of a response. We did get an email from the father of the owner, and he's an attorney, and once he revealed that, then I turned it over to our legal counsel to address. But we weren't getting anywhere with them, so we've had multiple inspections since then. In February, we inspected again, and while our inspector was in the parking lot, an individual pulled in who informed us that he's renting an apartment there that we don't know anything about, too. So, in addition to all of the blight and unapproved uses, they also have an apartment that, as far as we know, does not have any building permits pulled and definitely hasn't been inspected by the Ordinance Department for rental inspections. And we don't even know, there might be more than one unit. Our inspector talked to one person, there might be others. And most recently, I went out there on February 27th before I did the memo to see if there'd been any changes, and there have not been any changes. So we'd like to bring litigation to resolve the blight non-approved uses on this property.
Any questions regarding this particular property? Mr.
I would just say that in support of what the ordinance and planning departments deal with, there's countless hours that are spent every week responding to complaints of this nature. And as Belinda outlined, this goes back to December of last year. So none of these cases come about in a very rapid or a quick manner. There's been notice given, time to come into compliance. We spent a lot of time talking about the aesthetics and the trash and pickup, et cetera. And some of these places are the entryway into our township as well as other parts of the township too. And I sometimes just don't know what goes through people's minds into thinking that some of these uses are okay. And I think right now that, I guess I'm just trying to give some special kudos to the planning and the ordinance because they get an awful lot of phone calls that come in on a daily basis. And sometimes you just can't spend all the time you need to address all these. This is one, though, that I know has been on their radar for a while, trying to gain voluntary compliance. And as the supervisor pointed out many times, we only go to court if necessary. And some of these, like the one tonight, is one that truly qualifies for being necessary. But again, it's not something that's done without giving opportunity to come into compliance.
Thank you, Mr. Winters. Trustee Swanson?
Do we know if has anybody seen vermin or heard complaints about vermin? Because it looks like a place for vermin to
Yeah, we have not had any complaints, but once once it gets filed in court and we can get access to the property, we would have Orkin go out and evaluate it.
Okay.
All right, the next one.
All right, the next one is 161 E-Course, and that is between Hawthorne and Parkwood. That was purchased by an LLC in 2021 for $43,000, which is very reasonable for a commercial property. It was vacant at that time, and it appears the last use of that property was a grocery store. We don't have a business registration on file for that property either, most likely because the last use predated our business registration process. This property came to the attention of the Ordinance Department because of the blighted condition, resident complaints, and failure of the owner to respond to multiple requests to register and permit a vacant structure inspection that we do annually on vacant structures. It had been registered prior to this owner taking possession since 2015, and inspections were performed, and some work had been done to maintain it, but since this owner purchased it in 21, we have not been able to get inside for an inspection. He is local, but does not respond to our requests. So in January, this year, January 29th, we executed an administrative search warrant where we are let into the building by Belfour, and then they secure it when we're finished, just to make sure that the structure is safe to be left vacant and there's not a hazard inside. They did, the inside wasn't, it's deteriorated. It's not in use in any way. But and there's not a lot of stuff stored in there that's a danger. But in the time that it sat vacant, the parking lot, the building, and the fence have deteriorated. And we've had 4 enforcement actions open in the last 2 years for blight, unsafe sidewalks and driveways, standing water on the site, peeling paint, failing roof and gutters, overgrown weeds, trash, just general deterioration because nobody's taking care of the building. We've issued citations for blight and failure to maintain the vacant property, which were ignored by the owner, resulting in default judgments in district court. And despite numerous attempts to contact the property owner and gain voluntary compliance, the property's just continued to deteriorate. So again, it's unfair for the residents that live in that area and the other businesses there to have this blighted property in their area.
Questions or comments? I do know community engagement scheduled a business meeting on Ecorse Road, and I think there were 13 business owners that came. So we're looking at, as you know, when we sell property on Seaver Farm, like Aldi, then we're going to reinvest it, the board said, into Ecorse Road for redevelopment, revitalization. And I think it was a great meeting. The city of Ypsilanti, they had someone in attendance, so that'll all be coming back to the board to see ways that we can really focus on redeveloping, reimagining Ecorse Road. And I think you have tried all you can to get attention to this, and I too have heard about the condition of the property at different meetings. But we want people to succeed on Michigan Avenue and Ecorse Road, so maybe if we could get it in good condition, then we could help somehow, in letting people know that this is zoned this way, this is an opportunity for small business or existing businesses, startups, whatever, but it has to be presentable and it has to be welcoming, and properties like this in a commercial district really affects the residents and, like you said, the other business owners. So our goal is compliance, it always has been, but if people won't respond, this is our last action to take to get them to respond. What is the next?
All right, the next one is 2 adjoining properties, and these are residential, one-family residential zone properties located at 9725 Bemis and 9645 Bemis, and it's in the area between Bunton and Tuttle Hill. And one parcel is vacant, and the other parcel is occupied and has a home and other buildings on it. The vacant parcel has been leased to the owner of the adjoining parcel that resides there. And since, prior to leasing the vacant parcel, the occupied parcel had developed a motocross track for the family members basically to ride motocross bikes. And it was, while, it was kind of noisy sometimes, it was generally tolerable by the neighbors. However, the vacant property was leased to this same homeowner, and between 2020 and 2022, he's developed a very intricate system of motocross track, cutting through woods and everything and making trails, and it is directly adjacent to occupied properties. The first complaint we received was in September of 22, and it was, and this was after the vacant parcel had been developed into a motocross track, and the complaint was about the noise. We issued a notice of violation to the vacant property owner, and it did get a little bit better, based on inspections and talking to the neighbors, but it was also going into the winter. March of 2023, we were contacted by a resident adjacent to the vacant land, and the noise issues had returned. Our ordinance officer issued a citation to the property owner, and it was heard by Judge Washington with all the parties in attendance. And Judge Washington entered an order that would put parameters on the riding. They were given certain hours that they could ride, certain location that they could ride, how many days a week. But after that went into effect, the feedback that we've received is that the property owner is not abiding by those conditions. They're riding, they've installed bright lights so that they can ride after dark, which is what was in the pictures in the packet. And there's a higher volume of use, causing a public nuisance to the neighboring properties, the noise and the lighting. And the zoning ordinance doesn't permit one-family residential properties like either one of these to be used as a motocross track. It's a commercial use that has zoning requirements for parcel size, establishing buffers, distance from residential properties, and it has to be in compliance with noise levels, which this personal track does not meet any of those requirements. The track is used by the family that resides there next to the vacant parcel, but it also is being heavily used by other people too, family, friends, associates. At one point, it was Vacation Bible School. Kids were coming to ride after class at the end of the day. Larger groups, so it is getting heavily used. The overhead aerial GIS maps that are there on the screen show the extent of the development of it between 2020 and 2023. And, for the people that live adjacent to this, and we've had complaints from a couple of them, and we've heard, kind of through the grapevine from others that even somebody moved away because of this noise and the irritation. It's causing negative impact to their quality of life, and then potentially to their property value too. One person has been told by a realtor that it's reduced the value of their property. If somebody comes out on a Sunday afternoon to go to an open house and they hear this motocross track with, 15 people riding motocross bikes, they're not going to want to live there.
Questions or comments? Mr. Woodard?
Yeah, I would just say that when it came to my attention, I have spoken with the Township's new planning consultant as well as the planning staff, and also I reached out to the Martins, who are the residents who live next to this vacant piece of property. I would just emphasize that this vacant piece of property is owned by someone else, is owned by someone who lives, in a nice, quiet residential subdivision. So he leased the property to the people next door, and when you look at the 2023 map, it's virtually the entire, 8 or 9 acres has been turned into a motocross track. They've had lights installed for nighttime riding. It's not improper. It's not a proper use for a residential zoning district. There may very well be a need for this type of activity. This can't really be allowed to occur in a residential setting like this. And so I'm not really sure exactly what more we can do beyond go to court and ask for this use to cease and desist, because again, if you put yourself in the position of any of our residential property owners who buy property and expect some degree of quiet and enjoyment of the use of their property, just can't imagine a more noxious use than to have actually a well-developed motocross track right next to your property. And again, hopefully we'll gain some degree of compliance against the property owner who leased this property out, but at the same time, I think it's reached a point where, quite frankly, it probably never should have gone to district court, because the noise ordinance is not really the issue right now. The issue is this property is being used in violation of the township's zoning ordinance. And for those reasons, I think it's at a point where there's no other alternative but to ask the Washtenaw County Circuit Court to issue the appropriate orders, because again, this use is not allowed in a residential zoning district.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Hearing none, we have a motion in support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you,
Thank you.
Belinda. Number 5 is a request to approve the 2024 Ypsilanti Township Agreement with Washtenaw County Road Commission for street sweeping in the amount of $17,113.74. It is budgeted. It's just an extra street sweeping in Ypsilanti Township.
So moved, Peterson.
Support.
Motion Peterson, support Rowe. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 6 is a request to move David Marshall from an alternate to a regular board member of the Zoning Board of Appeals to fill the vacancy with a term expiring December 31st, 2024.
So moved, Peterson.
Support.
Motion Peterson, support Rowe. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 7 is a request to appoint Darrell Kirby to the Planning Commission with a term expiring December 31st, 2026.
So move.
Motion Rowe,
Support Peterson.
support Peterson. Discussion? His resume is also in the board packet. He has a lot of experience, and he's also on our Park Commission. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 8 is a request to temporarily appoint Elizabeth Kuehler to the Civil Service Commission with a term expiring December 31st, 2024.
So move Peterson.
Motion Peterson, support Hunter. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 9 is budget amendment number 3. Clerk Rowe?
I have budget amendment number 3. I'd move to increase the general fund budget by $10,761 to $26,895,179 and approve the department line item changes as outlined, and move to complete a line transfer in the fire fund budget for a net result of 0 and approve the department line changes as outlined, and move to increase the bike, sidewalk, rec, and roads fund budget by $55,000 to $3,782,400 and improve the line item changes as outlined. I'd so move the budget amendment.
Motion Rowe,
So move Peterson.
support Peterson. Is there discussion on this item? One of them is the retiree payout in the accounting department. And the other thing is for the truck maintenance in the fire department. And 17 new park signs to be installed throughout the park system as well. All in favor?
This is the park signs right now, or are we going to talk about the park signs?
This is a budget amendment that will allow us to approve the park sign, which is next.
So move Peterson. Oh, you already did it?
Yep, we have motion
sorry.
Rose,
I'm sorry.
support Peterson, right?
Okay, sorry.
We need all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under authorization bid, we have the request to award the low bid for park sign installation to Bill Carr Signs in the amount of $55,000, which is budgeted in line item 213-901-975-794.
So move.
Motion Rowe,
Support Peterson.
support Peterson. Mr. Hines?
Good evening again, John Hines, Municipal Services Director. Here bringing before you, contingent on the budget amendment that was previously mentioned, a award for the low bid to Bill Carr Signs in the amount of $55,000. That would be for the removal of the current signs and installation of 17 new signs in parks across the township. 6 of those signs would be double-sided and go horizontal or vertical to the road, and then the other 11 would be vertical and not go double-sided. So you just would see it as you're entering into the park. Attached to the memo is some design options that Bill Carr Signs put together just for the board's consideration. Doing some polling beforehand, and I included in the memo a recommendation, option 1A, which would be the navy blue sign. And then when we start to look, if this gets approved tonight, at installing signs at some of our smaller parks, option 2B, which is navy blue as well. So it would, follow along with the same color tone and be as part of our brand standards.
Yep.
Questions or comments?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
John, looking at the car signs, now what are those for? The car signs.
Bill Carr Signs is the company name, so these would be park signs. So as you're entering into, Ford Lake Park, Ford Heritage Park.
That's just the company's logo.
The
Okay.
company's name, yes, that's correct.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay, so again, we're just looking at they're going to be consistent throughout the whole park, whatever color we choose. Is that correct, or they'll be different?
No, so he just sent different color options because it was
Right.
requested after we started communicating with him. So for the board's consideration is kind of a decision on that color. Again, Eileen and a few other individuals I've polled kind of agreed, but again, it's for the board's discretion. Option 1A and then 2B, when we start to look at installing in other parks not included in this proposal.
And 1A is the dark blue background,
Dark
correct?
blue, yes.
Dark blue, and that would be consistent throughout the park? Is that what you're saying or no?
It would be the same at every single park it's installed at.
what I
Yes, that's
thought you
correct.
said. And
So-
this is coming in the entranceway of the park?
Correct.
Okay, from the street or when you pass, well, it has to come from the street so people could see it, right?
Yep, and
That's what I'm
that
worried
was the
about.
thought behind, currently Ford Lake Park does, I keep saying, kind of vertical, but where you can see it from both sides, but
Okay.
Ford Heritage does not at this time, Community Center Park does not at this time, so
Yeah.
really include the visibility. The nice thing about these signs, as well as they're vinyl instead of wood, so they should hold up much better to weather conditions without needing to be repainted, and if it comes to the fact that they are damaged for any reason, it's much easier to then replace it at that time.
Okay, so the company will replace them if they're damaged? Let's say by weather or?
We would have to, we'd have to pay for it, but it's much easier just to get them to redo the vinyl and install it in the posts.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and part of the reason, again, for that price is because they do need to remove all the signs right now.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments?
So what was the, it was 1A and what was the other one?
So 1A would be kind of included in these 17, but, with some of the parks that were not included in the original RFP, the signs at those parks, I guess I'd say Tot Lot as an example, are of the smaller, about, I think 4 foot wide instead of 8 foot wide. That would be the sign that we would use at those parks to stay consistent with what is there now, but again, consistent in the color and brand style that would be of the bigger park signs.
So they would all be the same color?
Yep. Because that was kind of the hope is that, when we went into this process and put out the RFP is that when someone's driving along the road, you're going to see the logo, know that you're at a county or a township park before you get there. I say county because, that's one thing I do think Washtenaw County does a good job of with their seal is before you get to Rolling Hills, you see that in the corner and know like, okay, well, I think that's going to be it. And that's kind of the, hope with these signs is that it's going to be much more visible as well as let individuals know that they're at a township park before they even get there.
I just want to see the orange one again, because it does stand out, even though it may look, not that one, that one. I like the color, but, the letters, that, when you're driving, you could really see that orange sign stand out, and you know that you're coming to Ypsilanti Township Park. But the blue letters, don't.
They do come a little bright on the picture, that's for sure.
Yeah, maybe if they could be a little darker, then, that would be a consideration. But it's, either one, I like either one, the dark one or that light one, to just stand out.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I already shared with John, I think the blue and the dark blue sign has a really nice contrast so that when you're driving, the visibility is easier to read. But John, the one thing I didn't notice until I zoomed in, because I don't have my glasses today, is that on this one, he has it outlined in teal on the inside, and I prefer it without it, I think, because I think it makes it look fuzzier to me right now. But on the other one, the option 1A, it does not have that outline on the inside of the
So you'd say
letters.
for this one, just keep it consistent with the bigger sign with no band highlighting the address?
No, not that. Actually inside the F and the O. It's
Oh,
really
I
hard to
gotcha.
see if you don't
Yeah, the
zoom
outline.
in a lot. Do you see that one doesn't have the outline on the inside of the letters.
Okay, yeah, I'll make a note of that.
This one does. I truly have looked at these a lot and I didn't see it before, so.
I think I see it
But I
blowing
think
up on the screen.
the navy and the white is a really good contrast for drivers to see.
I also noticed that you have the emblem on it for State of Michigan DNR grant, or?
Yeah, and that was important, is that on each sign, we leave space for MDNR plaques, because we do have them on, I think at least 5 of them right now, and need to add a plaque to Lakeside and Loon Feather, or Community Center Park, excuse me, Lakeside and Community Center Park, which I'm working with the supervisor's office to order more plaques as we speak.
It's a requirement of the state of Michigan, and as positions change or people change, they're always looking for where's the plaque? Because we do have to report that to the state of Michigan. So having it on a sign is beautiful.
That's what I was going to ask. I wondered why that was there, because it's so busy for a sign like that. I mean, I get they need it, but I don't think we want drivers looking at that part. So right now, those are on the wooden ones that we have. They've got the seal on it.
So the seal they used is a state of Michigan seal. What we have on there are just MDNR trust fund seals or land and water conservation seals, depending on how we acquired or did work to the park. So they're not as colorful as those right there. More so they are, our current seals, I think, are kind of brown on the background with a silver outline of the logo for the MDNR trust fund grants.
So this was just a mock-up to show where that might go. That's not what's actually going to be on it, because it's going to be the trust fund one?
Correct. They just, one part of the stipulation was you have to leave room for us to have those 12 by 12 inch seals.
Okay. So the only other concern I have is the vinyl, because like if you go, like we're spending a lot of money and we're not going to know how well this holds up. And like if you go to, what's the one, North Hydro, and you look at those signs that were put there that are where you walk around and you can see the different things that talk about it, they're completely deteriorated. So in my mind, that doesn't seem like something that should happen out in the elements. I don't know what they're vinyl, I don't know what they are, but they're basically not usable. So my reservation would be that's my reservation, which I guess if we're going to go for it, like we aren't going to have any way of checking. I mean, I'd rather see something be put up, see what happens in the elements for a little bit. But anyway, that's my concern, because shifting from the wood isn't as attractive, but it's definitely lasted for a really, really long time. So that's my concern, making sure that, we get our money's worth and that they're going to last. I don't know, did they give us an estimate for how long these are going to last?
They did say in the proposal that they are weather rated to a certain degree. And they give us a 12-month warranty, barring vandalism and acts of God. So they do give us that protection. The type of vinyl that's at Hydro, which actually Bill Carr has, through Mike Saarinen, replaced those signs or working to replace them, working on them currently. But it's a different type of vinyl, because that's vinyl kind of underneath the screen, where these are going to be vinyl as the actual material. So it's not going to be like a picture and then kind of a coating over it. It's going to be fully vinyl, which lasts longer than, again, having a screen on top of it, which takes more of that sun damage and amplifies it.
So this is the same company that did the ones at North Hydro?
That are doing the replacements.
Oh, that are doing the replacements.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, what was the other question? Out of my head. All right, so the vinyl, and then the posts, are the posts like metal? The posts that are going to go on, they're colored, so are they, what's it, powder coated, or what is the metal sign? The part that's metal with the color?
So it's a 6mm alu panel mounted to 3-inch square tube framing installed on 3-inch square posts.
Wood?
The color, right? Like, is it?
Yes.
Is it powder coated? Is that?
Hold on, don't be wrong here.
It says 3-inch square tube framing and 3-inch square post.
I don't think it specifies the type of paint, but
It's like powder
does
coat
not.
is what we have on the playgrounds. That's going to last a really long time. I would think that's what we'd want on this kind of stuff, but if it's not specified.
It's not specified exactly.
So how do we find that out, just to make sure that it's, if it's not specified, do we ask for the specs to have it to be?
Yeah, I can request that from him.
I mean, I'm not saying that you have to, but like I want to know that like if we're putting money in it, they need to last, so.
So we
Yeah.
can look at the specs that we approved before they went out, right?
I don't think we specified wood or metal, and that's what I don't want to be incorrect on, because in my conversations, I was under the impression they're metal, but, it doesn't specify on here, and I just don't want to speak incorrectly.
Okay. So you'll get
I'll get
confirmation
clarification from,
that- I I think they look really nice, and having a unified brand, I think, is something we all talked about as a board, John, so thank you for doing that. I know there's park rules and stuff that changed, and I know it's not part of this, but I do think it's important for, at some point, to address the park rules. Right now, they're wood and...
So, yeah, I'm happy you brought that up. So part of, if this is approved tonight, this company, honestly, they're very communicative. They've been very wonderful to work with. I've already had some kind of talks with Robin Castle-Hines about the park rule signs and, of course, the other park signs that are not included part of this RFP. And through part of money that's already budgeted in the BSR2 and the Parks Fund, want to talk to him about getting quotes to replace some of those as well, just because overall the goal between this year and next would be to replace all the park signs and the signs in the parks, as well as at our facilities where applicable, to match this brand standard. Because we do have the wooden brown signs at most of our locations right now. And that includes the community center and the golf course.
But they're older signs too, so I think there's new rules that we could add to that, maybe.
Yeah, especially with the park hours that have changed, because right now I think we just have it kind of, we have it to work this as, dusk to 9 p.m., but it'd be nice to have this done. And that, again, is the nice thing about how they do the process, is it's very straightforward. Once we decide to change it, we just send them what we want to change it to, and it takes them a couple weeks to manufacture and then come out and install it.
So 2 things I heard is to verify...
If it's wood or metal for the posts.
And the length of the weather, how long will the sign last? Of course, if there's a big storm, it knocks it over, that's something different.
Yeah.
But how does it weather?
Mm-hmm.
Because they look very nice.
I'll get an answer tomorrow and send it to the entire board and, of course, CC Doug.
Thank you.
To work in parks. We've had the logo and the colors, a lot of attention's been paid to like this color scheme. So like when they go to do like the structures, all that kind of stuff, I really feel strongly that every time we're replacing things, we need to be really considering this unified look when we go into the parks with the colors that were identified by the logo committee. So like if there's going to be painting happening or whatever, it really, like, we know what colors it should be. I'm not saying like which one, but like if you're going to paint it, then it needs to be the color scheme that we've had. And I guess somebody probably should be looking at that, but which is not necessarily this item. But I think every time we're replacing stuff, we should be creating a uniform.
Follow the brand standards.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we have a motion and support, and all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
There's no other business. Are there any public comments? Seeing none, are there board member updates? There's a couple things I would like to update the board on. The University of Michigan, we met with their rowing group, and Robin and John Hines and myself. They are interested in moving their row team and their row facility that's currently in Van Buren Township to Ypsilanti Township. So it was a great conversation. It's just the beginning of the conversation, but I wanted to share that. And if you could just envision on that site, having EMU and U of M, just working together, I think says a lot for our community, and again, provides more opportunity for our youth to possibly get scholarships for education. So that's really exciting. It's just the beginning of the talks on that. They've also met with EMU about it. So we also met with the city of Ann Arbor, the director of their wastewater treatment plant, and some of their other leaders in that group, because there is a requirement by the state of Michigan, Eagle, and there is a limit on the phosphorus. And the reason is because downstream is algae bloom in Ypsilanti Township, Fort Lake, and in Belleville Lake as well. So part of their agreement is that they would approach Ypsilanti Township to see if we could do a study together and make recommendations on improvements to address the algae bloom in Ford Lake, which is great. So we had one meeting, Luke and the director of the sewer plant was present. So it's just the beginning, but it sounds like a great opportunity to really get to some solutions. Dr. Lehman, who did work for Ypsilanti Township, also did work for the city of Ann Arbor and U of M. So just stay tuned on that. That'll be coming. The next step is to get the two attorneys together to see about doing it, just a MOU, Memorandum of Understanding on what we're doing with the city of Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti Township. So just kind of look for that to come in the future. The Blessing of the Trucks is an event that was held by our fire chief and the firefighters, and it was just wonderful. We had 2 fire trucks that were blessed. There was a Baptist minister, a priest, and a Native American blessing of the trucks. And I mean, it was just a very nice event that was held. And thank you, Chief, for having that. And it was pretty well attended, too. I know Lori attended from community engagement. It was very nice. Gloria Peterson and I attended the African American History event at the Community Center. So this is the 8th year, and it started out really small. And there was 75 people there. It was it was a great presentation. Much thanks to Nicole and Jacob at the Rec Center for coordinating with on this event. It was wonderful. It turned out really well. I also attended a rare disease lighting, and it included the lighting of the tower in the city of Ypsilanti. Luke Blackburn, who's the director of Yucca, it would not have been possible without that. It reminded me of the Rosie the River event. It starts real small, and then it grows. So our first Rosie River contest for how many people could you get in the area with a dress like Rosie the Riveter? It started, and there was 150. And Debbie, I think you were there, and so was your mother. And so it started with 150. By the time we did the third one, there was 5,000, and we took the Guinness Book of World Records for Rosie the Riveters. So this is a beginning, and they were very thankful for our participation and help with that. We also, Ryan and Gloria and I attended the E-Course Road business meeting. There was so much positive energy and synergy, and there's really, really good things happening in the township, and that was another one. So I just wanted to update the board on that. With no further ado, a motion to adjourn. Adjourn is in order.
So moved.
Motion Rowe. Support Swanson. Meeting adjourned at 8:03.